Have you ever felt invisible, a ghost among millions, judged solely by your appearance, as if your presence was an offense to the world around you? Now imagine that feeling intensified, turned into a public nightmare, all because of the color of your skin in the heart of Manhattan. This is the story of Caleb Thorne, a 19-year-old who only wanted to buy a meaningful gift for his sister. He walked into an exclusive art gallery, Sapphire Grand, in Midtown Manhattan, never imagining he would leave in handcuffs, accused of theft. Until one unexpected detail changed everything and made his accusers deeply regret their actions. Pay attention, because the lesson here is profound, echoing in the silence of injustice, showing that the dignity of a man cannot be measured by prejudice or the luxury of his surroundings. It was a typical Thursday afternoon in Manhattan. The June sun cast a golden glow over the glass and steel skyscrapers. On Fifth Avenue, the air buzzed with millions of voices, honking yellow cabs, and the city's tireless rhythm. Among executives in tailored suits and dazzled tourists, Caleb Thorne walked with a clear purpose. He wasn't the type to frequent high-end galleries in Midtown, but today was different. It was his younger sister, Aurora Thorne's 16th birthday. She had dreamy eyes and a visible passion for art. She sketched in old notebooks, painted with cheap brushes, and spoke of the Met and MoMA like sacred places. In the pocket of his worn jeans, a carefully sealed envelope held months of savings. Caleb worked night shifts at the Old Tome bookstore in Greenwich Village, a cozy place scented with aged paper and fresh coffee. He mopped floors, shelved books, and helped customers late into the night, often returning home to Harlem in the early hours. Every penny saved was for Aurora. He skipped snacks, movies, and new clothes. His goal was clear: to buy something that would make her eyes light up, something special, something she would treasure more than any material gift. Aurora was his anchor, the reason he endured so much since the early loss of their biological parents. Then he stopped. In front of him stood Sapphire Grand, towering and nearly intimidating, with its glass and brushed steel facade reflecting the blue Manhattan sky. The golden name gleamed under the sunlight. Inside the vast windows, abstract sculptures and vibrant paintings floated under precise lighting. Caleb hesitated. His faded jeans and simple t-shirt stood in sharp contrast to the place and its passing crowd of elegance. He knew he didn't fit the typical profile of their clientele, but the image of Aurora, her smile, her passion, pushed him forward. He took a deep breath, brushing aside the doubt. He stepped through the heavy door. His sneakers echoed on the polished marble floor. The space was silent, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The air smelled of expensive cleaners and polished wood. No other clients. Only one woman stood behind an ebony counter. Her name tag read Eleanor Vance, Senior Art Consultant. She looked up, blue eyes scanning him slowly, offering a faint smile that never reached her eyes. Caleb felt a chill. That look, he knew it. The look that said he didn't belong. Still, he smiled and stepped forward, keeping his voice steady and polite. "Good afternoon. I'm looking for a sculpture. It's for my sister's birthday." Eleanor Vance narrowed her eyes. "A sculpture? Any specific piece in mind, young man?" Her voice was dry, nearly bored, as if he were wasting her time. Her tone and gaze made it clear she had already judged him. "No, not exactly. Something beautiful, inspiring. She loves modern art. Something that represents freedom, maybe." Eleanor tilted her head, arms crossed, her manicured nails tapping her elbow. She didn't move to show him anything. Her eyes glanced at the envelope in his hand with disdain. "And do you have the means for that? Our pieces, well, they're not for everyone. Some of them cost more than most apartments here in Manhattan. They're for investors, collectors." Caleb's smile vanished. A knot formed in his throat. He took a deep breath, reminded himself of Aurora. He wouldn't let this woman ruin this moment. He'd faced this kind of treatment before, in stores, in restaurants, in uptown neighborhoods. But here, in a place meant to showcase beauty, the humiliation cut deeper. Without a word, he took the envelope from his pocket and placed it on the counter. The same envelope that held his weeks of work and sacrifice. He wanted her to see it. He wanted her to know he was a customer, a real one. Eleanor looked at the envelope, her lips curling into a nearly invisible smirk of disdain. Then she looked up at Caleb, and a heavy silence filled the air. The tension was tangible, almost electric. Instead of checking the money or showing him any sculptures, she discreetly reached under the counter and picked up the phone. Her fingers dialed a number swiftly, eyes never leaving Caleb, as if he were a rodent caught in a trap. Caleb, unaware, assumed she was calling a colleague or the gallery manager. The truth was far crueler.
"Hello, this is Sapphire Grand on Fifth Avenue," she whispered. "We have a suspicious individual here. Young, black, alone, examining the artwork. He seems to be casing the place. I think he might attempt a theft. His behavior is atypical. Can you come quickly? It's urgent." She hung up and placed the phone back beneath the counter. Then she gave Caleb a forced smile, her eyes gleaming with something cold. "Just a moment, dear. I'll check the availability of some pieces in the vault. Some of our best works are kept secured. Please wait." She turned and disappeared through a back door, leaving Caleb alone, unaware that in just a few minutes his life would spiral into a public nightmare in the heart of Manhattan. He remained by the counter, uncertainty gnawing at him, a heavy sense of wrongness lingering. What once felt like serene silence now pressed down like a suffocating fog. He tried to focus on the art, imagining which sculpture might light up Aurora's eyes. But Eleanor Vance was taking far too long to return. The gallery remained eerily empty. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Then the glass and steel door burst open with a loud, violent crash. The sound echoed across the marble floor, drowning out the noise of Fifth Avenue. 2 NYPD officers entered, Detective Hayes and Detective Walsh. Their boots hit the ground in a sharp rhythm. Both were white, with tense faces and eyes sharp with suspicion. Their hands hovered near their weapons, as if they were walking into a high-stakes hostage situation. Their eyes locked instantly on Caleb. Caleb turned, startled and confused, his heart pounding. "Hands where I can see them," Hayes shouted, pointing directly at him. For a moment, Caleb didn't understand. "What?" "I said hands where I can see them," Hayes repeated, already reaching for his weapon, his voice sharp, commanding. Terrified, Caleb raised his hands immediately, palms open. At that moment, Eleanor Vance reappeared from the back door, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with smug satisfaction. Her expression said everything. "I knew I was right." "What's going on?" Caleb asked, his voice trembling, barely above a whisper, but thick with disbelief and rising panic. The detectives moved in quickly. Hayes grabbed Caleb's arm and yanked him away from the counter with unnecessary force, nearly slamming him into the wall. "Stay quiet. You're under investigation. We received a report that you were attempting to steal from the gallery." "What?" Caleb's eyes widened, mind racing to comprehend the absurdity. "I'm just here to buy a gift for my sister. The money's right there." Detective Walsh, with a swift and dismissive motion, grabbed the envelope of money that still sat on the counter. She glanced at the stack of bills, frowned, then looked at Caleb and let out a mocking, condescending laugh. "This yours, kid, or do you think you can fool us with subway change like this? Doesn't even cover a corner of one of these $1 million pieces."
Caleb felt a wave of anger and fear collide in his chest. "No! I work 2 jobs! I study and work nights to save that money! I haven't done anything wrong! I just wanted to buy a birthday gift for my sister!" But they weren't listening. Their arrogance was a wall. Hayes turned Caleb around and shoved him against the ebony counter with force, as Walsh began patting him down harshly, rummaging through his pockets, jacket, backpack. "Got any weapons, drugs, anything illegal?" Walsh asked, her voice ice-cold, without an ounce of empathy. "I'm not armed. I'm not a criminal. I'm a student," Caleb cried, trying to keep the panic from overtaking him. Outside, passers-by in the shopping complex started watching. Some pulled out phones, recording. No one intervened. Eleanor Vance stood with arms crossed, a look of fake concern on her face, as if this was all routine, just another scene she'd orchestrated. Caleb felt his throat close. Tears welled up in his eyes, tears of fury and helplessness. It wasn't the first time people had looked at him like that, assumed he was a threat because of his skin, but this time was worse. He was being searched, accused, handcuffed in public for something he never even imagined doing. With a rough gesture, Hayes pulled Caleb's ID from his pocket. He opened it and read aloud, his tone still taunting. "Caleb Thorne, lives at—" Then his voice stopped. The arrogance on his face disappeared. He went pale, his jaw clenched, the smirk vanished. Walsh noticed the sudden change. "What is it, Hayes?" Hayes swallowed hard. His eyes darted from the ID to Caleb's face, then back, and again. He realized the magnitude of the mistake. There, printed in bold letters with official markings, was the address: Private Residence of Judge Alistair Thorne, Park Avenue, Upper East Side. And beneath it, in red ink, Adopted Son, Restricted Access, Contact Judge's Office immediately for any encounter. Silence. The chaos of Fifth Avenue seemed to freeze. The gallery was still. Caleb's dignity, crushed moments ago, was now rising, and the fear, the cold, paralyzing fear, settled in the detective's eyes. The quiet inside Sapphire Grand was deafening. Caleb's racing heartbeat echoed in his ears. The detectives who had treated him like nothing were now stiff, pale, and sweating. Hayes held the ID like it might burn through his skin. "Alistair Thorne," he muttered, barely audible, his voice shaking, cold sweat dampening his collar. He was scrambling for a way out. Alistair Thorne wasn't just anyone. He was the chief judge of the New York District Court, respected, feared, known for his relentless stance against injustice, especially from the police. His word carried more weight than 1,000 testimonies. His reach was vast. And now, these 2 detectives had handcuffed and humiliated his adopted son. Caleb, still reeling, noticed the shift. Their voices had changed. The aggression was gone, replaced with panic. "Listen, kid," Hayes said, voice cracking, trying to sound calm. "It was a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, you know?" He released Caleb's arm. It's a mistake," Walsh added quickly, her tone suddenly soft, almost pleading. But it was too late. The damage was done. Caleb's dignity had been dragged through the dirt on one of the busiest avenues in the world. There was no going back. Because at that exact moment, just outside the gallery, the doors of a black armored sedan with government insignia opened silently on the Fifth Avenue sidewalk. A group of individuals in tailored suits, discreet earpieces in place, entered the shopping complex with firm, purposeful steps. Their expressions were focused, unreadable. And in the center of them, a figure of elegance and authority walked with an energy that froze the air. Judge Alistair Thorne. His cold, piercing blue eyes landed directly on Caleb, then on the detectives. His face, expressionless, carved in ice, radiated a storm contained beneath the surface. Security guards from the shopping center, who had arrived to assist in the theft situation, recognized him immediately. Some stepped back discreetly, panic rising in their faces. This man wasn't here for conversation. He stepped into the gallery, hands in the pockets of his tailored coat, radiating a controlled power that silenced the room. He let the tension build, pressing down on everyone like a verdict. Then, in a voice as sharp as a scalpel, "What is going on here?" The detectives froze, statues carved in dread. Eleanor Vance, once confident and in control, took a step back, stumbling slightly. Her eyes locked on the floor, spine stiff with apprehension. Caleb looked at his adopted father, a wave of relief rushing over him. But he also knew what was coming, and he knew no one, neither badge nor uniform, would be spared. The mood inside Sapphire Grand had shifted entirely, from humiliation to tribunal, now presided over by the judge himself. If the detectives had held power before, now it was Alistair Thorne who ruled the room. No need to raise his voice. His presence did the work. Detective Hayes and Detective Walsh stood uncomfortably, visibly sweating, their nervousness growing by the second. Eleanor, once so sure of herself, now looked like a crumbling statue behind the counter. Alistair turned to his son first, scanning him for injuries. "Are you hurt, Caleb?" he asked, voice low but laced with a dangerous undercurrent only those who knew him could recognize. Caleb shook his head, swallowing hard. "No, Dad. They just treated me like a criminal, for nothing. They handcuffed me. I was just trying to buy something beautiful for Aurora's birthday." The words hit the room like a bomb. The air grew heavier. Alistair turned slowly to the detectives. His eyes were made of ice. "I'll ask only once," he said, his voice low, but every word landing like a gavel. "Why did you approach my son in this manner? Why did you handcuff him? Why did you search him like a common criminal? What legal grounds did you have for such action?" The detectives glanced at each other, visibly nervous, searching desperately for an excuse. Hayes, who earlier brimmed with arrogance, now stammered, voice thin and hesitant. We received a report, Your Honor, from the employee." He pointed at Eleanor Vance, desperately trying to deflect the blame. "She said there was a suspect in the store, a young man, behaving oddly. It seemed unusual for this type of establishment, sir." Alistair raised an eyebrow, a gesture he used in court to signal that a witness was dangerously close to perjuring themselves. "A suspect? What kind of suspect, Detective Hayes? Could you clarify? What kind of odd behavior justifies such an aggressive, baseless intervention?" The detective swallowed hard. Sweat trickled down his face as he averted his eyes. "Yes, Your Honor. A young black man, alone, examining expensive pieces, which, well, is uncommon in a place like this, in Manhattan. Clients usually come accompanied or have a purchasing history here." His voice faltered at the end, the sentence dying in his mouth, the underlying prejudice exposed. The gallery fell silent, a heavy, suffocating silence. Then Alistair laughed, cold, humorless. The sound made the detectives shrink. "Let me get this straight." He stepped forward, each footstep echoing sharply against the marble floor. My son, a university student who works 2 jobs to pay his way, enters a prestigious gallery to buy a gift for his sister, and you, instead of honoring your oath to serve and protect, assume he's a criminal, here to steal, because of the color of his skin and how he looks, which you've decided doesn't fit the profile of your usual clientele? No one answered. Detective Walsh looked helplessly at Hayes, but he was speechless. Then Alistair turned to Eleanor Vance. his eyes cutting through her like glass. "Eleanor Vance, correct?" She flinched. "Yes, that's me." "Were you the one who called the police, Miss Vance?" Her eyes welled with tears, lips trembling. I thought something might be happening. He was alone, and he didn't seem like the kind of client we usually receive. Our pieces are very valuable."
So you decided he didn't belong here, didn't you? You decided he couldn't afford anything in this gallery, that he must have come for some other reason, that he was a threat, not a customer. Isn't that what your police report implied? A false report based on racial bias? That's not what I meant. You meant exactly that, Miss Vance, and your actions proved it. Alistair's voice was iron. You didn't act out of safety. You acted out of prejudice. Eleanor's legs wobbled beneath her. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Alistair pulled out his phone and dialed a number. The detective stiffened. The dial tone echoed in the dead silence. What are you doing, Your Honor?" Hayes asked, voice barely audible. "Calling your boss, Commissioner Miller of the NYPD. I want to see how he'll react to the news that 2 of your officers, in uniform, on Fifth Avenue, publicly humiliated and handcuffed the son of a chief judge, without cause. And while I'm at it, I'll let him know about your colleague here, Miss Vance, who started all this with a false accusation rooted in pure discrimination. I want full reports, accountability, and justice." The color drained completely from the detectives' faces. Now they were truly, irreversibly in trouble. The marble floor beneath them felt like it had vanished. The silence inside the Sapphire Grand was absolute, heavy as molten lead. All eyes were fixed on Alistair, who now held the phone to his ear, waiting for the call to be answered, a countdown to the fate of everyone involved. The detectives knew exactly what that meant. The end of their careers, maybe more. Detective Hayes, once radiating unshakable arrogance, now dripped with sweat, his face gleaming under the gallery's cold lights. He took a step forward, his voice a desperate whisper. "Judge Thorne, please, let's handle this here, just among us, without involving others. It was a mistake, yes, a big mistake, a misunderstanding. I assure you, we'll face internal consequences, we'll be disciplined, but please don't bring the commissioner into this, not in a public scandal." Alistair raised an eyebrow, cold and calculating, but said nothing. On the other end of the line, a grave voice answered. "Commissioner Miller, NYPD. Who's this?" Alistair's eyes stayed locked on Hayes, who shrank beneath his gaze. "This is Judge Alistair Thorne. I need you at the Sapphire Grand in the Grandview Mall on Fifth Avenue immediately. We have a serious case of abuse of authority, explicit racism, and unlawful detainment of an innocent citizen. 2 of your detectives, Hayes and Walsh, are involved in a deplorable incident, and the gallery employee, Eleanor Vance, initiated it with a false, discriminatory report." Hayes turned ghostly white. He stammered, trying to interrupt, choking out excuses. Alistair didn't flinch. Walsh stepped forward in panic. "Your Honor, please, we didn't know he was your son. If we had known, we would have acted differently. This was a procedural failure, not prejudice." "Ah, so you think if he wasn't my son, you think it would have been acceptable? Just another anonymous black kid from a modest neighborhood? Would it be acceptable to handcuff, humiliate, and accuse him of theft without evidence on Fifth Avenue? Do you believe you deserve to wear an NYPD badge, to swear to serve and protect the citizens of New York?" They both swallowed hard, no response. The silence inside the Sapphire Grand was absolute, heavy as molten lead. The silence was broken by footsteps. The gallery doors burst open, and a group of 3 high-ranking NYPD officers entered, led by Commissioner Miller himself, a stocky man whose hardened face now bore a rare expression of worry. He had arrived in record time. He wasn't here to chat. He nodded at Alistair, his face solemn.
Judge Thorne, I'm here. I've been briefed. What's the exact situation? Where are the involved parties? He already had his radio in hand, calling for reinforcements and, more importantly, internal affairs. Detectives Hayes and Walsh knew they had just lost everything. Alistair turned to them one last time, his eyes ice cold. Commissioner, remove these two from duty immediately. I want their badges. I want a full report of this abuse of authority, explicit racial discrimination, and unlawful detainment on my desk before the end of the day. They are unfit to serve and protect this city. They are a disgrace to the NYPD. Miller nodded without hesitation. Understood, Your Honor. They'll be suspended without pay immediately, and a full investigation will be launched by Internal Affairs. This is unacceptable. You two, he turned to Hayes and Walsh, voice firm, no room for appeal. Hand over your badges and weapons. You're in custody of Internal Affairs. Get out of my sight. Walsh tried to speak, one last plea, but Hayes grabbed her arm and shook his head. They knew they were finished, completely defeated. The high-ranking officers escorted them out of the gallery, discreet cuffs on their wrists, while passers-by in the mall stopped to stare, phones raised to capture it all. The same officers who humiliated Caleb, who saw him as a threat because of his skin, now walked out in cuffs, their faces red with shame, marked by justice finally served in broad daylight on Fifth Avenue. The silence felt heavy. But now it carried relief, the weight of justice restored. Tension had dissipated, replaced by the sense of a fresh start. The employee had been fired, the officers suspended and under investigation. One person still needed accountability. She stood pale, arms folded, avoiding Judge Alistair Thorne's gaze. Alistair stepped forward, his eyes cold and penetrating, enough to make seasoned prosecutors tremble. Eleanor Vance, you were the one who called the police, correct? She hesitated, voice trembling. Yes, Your Honor, but I only did what I believed was right for the gallery security. I was just following safety protocol. I swear he was a risk. A small, disdainful smile curved Alistair's lips. The right thing. And what exactly is that protocol, Miss Vance? Judging a customer by their skin color before letting them make a word? Assuming that a young black man in a luxury gallery is automatically a thief? Humiliating someone based on your own prejudices? She swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the floor. He was alone, Your Honor, looking at expensive pieces, and he didn't seem like our typical client. Our pieces are highly valuable. I was protecting the gallery's assets. Alistair crossed his arms, disapproval clear. Did you ever ask if he could pay, Miss Vance? Did you treat him like a normal customer? Your protocol, it seems, was based on bias and discrimination, not security or customer service. You acted in bad faith. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her breath was shallow. At that moment, a tall, impeccably dressed man entered the gallery. His face was a mix of anger and embarrassment. It was Victor Sterling, owner of Sapphire Grand. He'd been informed by security and rushed in, witnessing the detectives being escorted out. His own reputation was on the line. Judge Thorne, I'm the owner of this gallery, he said, voice tense but respectful. He looked at Eleanor, anger in his eyes. I've just watched the security footage, every second of your repugnant behavior. There's not a shred of protocol in your actions, only discrimination. Her knees trembled as the reality sunk in. I was just doing what was best for the gallery's safety, Mr. Sterling. I acted on behalf of the company. Victor drew a deep breath. Safety for the gallery, Miss Vance? You humiliated an innocent customer, called the police without cause, damaged Sapphire Grand's reputation in Manhattan, all out of pure prejudice. This gallery does not and will not tolerate that. Your actions are an affront to everything we stand for. You're fired, effective immediately, and consider yourself lucky I'm not suing you for defamation. She froze in shock and humiliation. "What? You can't do this! I have a family! I need this job! Where will I work in Manhattan now?" He spoke with steely resolve. "I absolutely can, Ms. Vance, and I will. Gather your belongings and go. You are not welcome here anymore. Your presence is poison." Her face reddened. She cast a final pleading look at Alistair, but he remained unmoved. Then Eleanor Vance, broken, lowered her head, grabbed her bag, and fled the gallery, nearly running. Shoppers stared and whispered, phones raised. She didn't look back.
Justice had been served. But something was still missing for Caleb, the gift that brought him here. Now that Eleanor Vance had been fired and the detectives suspended and under investigation, the atmosphere in Sapphire Grand felt entirely different. The tension had lifted, replaced by a respectful silence, a late recognition of injustice. Caleb could finally do what he came for, buy a gift for his sister. Gallery owner Victor Sterling still looked visibly uncomfortable, adjusting his tie and clearing his throat before speaking to Caleb and Alistair. "Mr. Thorne, Judge Thorne, I offer my sincerest apologies on behalf of Sapphire Grand. This should never have happened, ever. Our policy is one of inclusion and respect for all our customers, without exception, regardless of background or appearance. Miss Vance's conduct does not reflect our values and will be publicly condemned." Alistair remained silent, watching, letting Victor continue. But Caleb spoke first, his voice now steady, dignity restored. "I just want to buy a gift for her, for Aurora. May I? I want something that will make her happy." Victor nodded quickly, relief evident on his face. Of course, Mr. Carter. More than that, as a gesture to make amends for the unjust treatment you endured, I'd like to offer the sculpture you choose as a gift from Sapphire Grand to you and your sister." Caleb looked to his father. Alistair gave a rare half-smile, filled with pride, and gently shook his head. "My son can pay for his sister's gift, Mr. Sterling. He worked hard for this. The value isn't in the price tag, it's in the effort and love behind it. This gift will mean far more because he earned it." Without hesitation, Caleb placed the slightly wrinkled envelope, now a symbol of his struggle and dignity, on the counter. Victor Sterling seemed surprised by the refusal, but didn't argue. He signaled to a new sales associate, a young woman with kind eyes and a genuine smile, who had been watching everything unfold with quiet sadness. She immediately opened the glass case and began showing him the sculptures, with a level of respect and kindness Caleb had never experienced in this place. This time, no one looked at him with suspicion or judgment. The new associate treated him with the care and attention he deserved from the beginning. Caleb scanned the pieces calmly, peacefully. His eyes settled on a small sculpture of a bird in flight, elegant, fluid, exuding freedom and hope. It was perfect for Aurora, who dreamed of soaring beyond limitations. He smiled as he held them in his hands, feeling that his mission was finally fulfilled. The sales associate wrapped the sculpture with great care in a sapphire blue box tied with a golden ribbon, like a precious treasure. When she handed him the bag, Caleb felt that the journey had been worth it. That moment of peace and accomplishment, after so much turmoil, was priceless. Alistair looked to his son with immense pride, eyes glistening. "That gift, Caleb, will be worth more than any diamond or $1,000,000 sculpture. It carries your essence, your struggle, your dignity, and your love for Aurora. That is priceless. That is the greatest gift she could ever receive." Then father and son walked out of the gallery together, heading toward the shopping center exit,
the skyscrapers of Fifth Avenue standing silently as witnesses. This wasn't just a purchase, it was a victory. A victory of dignity over prejudice, of truth over falsehood, and of love over ignorance. Outside the shopping center, Caleb and Alistair walked side by side, breathing in the fresh, early evening air of Manhattan. The sun was beginning to set over the Hudson River, painting the sky in shades of orange, purple, and red, a stunning contrast to the cold events of earlier. Caleb held the gallery bag tightly, feeling the weight of the small sculpture and the weight of everything that had happened. "What a day, huh, Dad?" Alistair gave a faint smile, but his gaze remained serious, focused, still processing the injustice. "Unfortunately, my son, some people still judge others without knowing the truth, without giving them the slightest chance. Prejudice still flies low for many, even here in the heart of New York, where diversity is supposedly celebrated. It hides in looks, in unspoken words, in cowardly actions." He looked at Caleb, the wisdom of years in his voice. "But the truth always comes to light." Caleb paused for a moment, looking at his father with a new light in his eyes, a deeper understanding of the world's complexity. "But today was different. You turned the tables. We didn't let them step on my dignity, and they had to pay for it." Alistair crossed his arms, took a deep breath, and placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder, squeezing it with pride. "Caleb, son, no one can take away your dignity unless you allow it. No one. Never lower your head to those who try to belittle you, who try to fit you into a box built on racial or social stereotypes. And never forget your worth, your intelligence, your character, regardless of what others think or the color of your skin. You're a thorn, and our family stands for justice, integrity, and resilience." Caleb nodded, absorbing every word. He felt warmth in his chest, a pride swelling inside. He smiled, genuine, radiant, and handed the small box with the sculpture to his father. "Happy birthday, Aurora. Dad, I hope she likes it. It cost a little more than I expected, but it was worth every cent, every minute of work, every humiliation, all of it, for her." Alistair looked at his son, surprised by the gesture and the way Caleb had called him, then took the box and opened it carefully. Inside, the bird in flight glowed under the golden light of the setting sun, a symbol of freedom and hope earned through great sacrifice. His eyes welled up, not just from the sculpture's beauty, but from the meaning behind it, the love and resilience of his son in the face of adversity. "My son, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Aurora will love it, and she'll know the true value behind it." He embraced Caleb tightly, a warm, strong hug. "You make me so proud, Caleb, more than you know." And in that moment, as the sun set over the majestic city of New York, casting light across the skyline, nothing else mattered. Justice had been done. Respect had been restored. And above all, Caleb knew he had the most incredible father in the world at his side, a man who defended him and taught him to lift his head and fight for his dignity. In the end, justice was served on every level in Manhattan. The detectives who humiliated Caleb were suspended and would face legal and professional consequences under the oversight of Judge Alistair Thorne's office. The employee who called the police out of prejudice was fired, losing her position and her standing in Manhattan's elitist art world. And Caleb, the young man who only wanted to buy a gift, showed everyone that no one can define who he is except himself. That small bird in flight, a simple sculpture, became a symbol of his strength, his resilience, and the dignity that can never be stolen, even on the streets of one of the world's most unforgiving cities.